I do believe that this practice is not only serving our inner world, but because we are all interbeing of connection, we are growing together and making this world a better place. So thank you for being here. And thank you for your kind introduction, Alex. And as he mentioned, Ullambana, the mindful practice of honoring ancestors, is the title of my talk. As it's always good to have a reason or timing to, practice different aspects of our lives that might be hard to make time to practice because Korea has various ways of honoring ancestors. I haven't really quite encountered kind of mainstream version of that in the United States. So this might be a good way of kind of cultural, kind of adopting different cultural practices to make it yours. All right. That's a very nice picture of me from our Tuesday Sangha photographer, Josh. Is looking for more gigs if you want any portrait photos. He's amazing. But I just wanted to list a few things about me because I often get attendees sharing that they didn't know I was a director, they don't know what I do. So a brief mentioning of me being a center director and the rest like shared. And for those of you who are new, welcome. Taoist Meditation Center's core gathering formats are inspired by Plum Village tradition, which is international. I like to mention that. And Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh is the founder of Plum Village tradition. So if you see that photo around, I guess we can consider him as the spiritual ancestor. And Brother Chising is the founder of the Taoist Meditation Center. His vision was to bring mindfulness and meditation practice to people of all faith and non-faith, secular backgrounds in an earth-based way with an emphasis on creativity, music, and the arts. I like to mention this part, especially to give emphasis on non-faith and secular, because I've encountered and had many good conversations with attendees, sharing that they found home here because this is a place where you can be free. You don't have to identify as whatever, Buddhist, Christian, Catholic, just kind of making a collage of your own practice. And secular is something that we definitely want to make, acknowledge and make space for. 3 values of Taoist Meditation Center is generosity, creativity, and inclusivity as seen in interfaith flags and our pride flags. Inclusivity is so important to us, and that's going to be part of our talk. And the reason I find inclusivity so important is that it supports independent thinking and practice building. After this talk, or during this talk too, I want you to really think about how do I incorporate this into my life and make this a practice? Because being exposed to information is fun. Being exposed to the idea that certain values can be useful to honor is fun. But it's the practice that helps you to really incorporate that into your life. So I really encourage you to think about what would be my practice based on what I learned today. And how do I want to participate in what I'm hearing today? Do I resonate with what I'm hearing today? What do I want to choose as part of my practice? Are the questions that I invite you to reflect on as I share a very Buddhist practice and beliefs, cultural and religious beliefs. Yeah, and kind of repeating myself here. Yeah, I tend to be really cautious about emphasizing again and again that me sharing certain information or cosmology isn't advocating for like believe that. Those are something for you to refer and reflect on and see how it feels, and know that you are in the driver's seat. Which part of this teaching, cosmology, or philosophy lands for you, and choose what you want to take home. Some clarifications, because I often get a very flattering question that I'm expert in Buddhist philosophy due to my position, but I'd like to clarify that I didn't have the fortune to study Buddhist philosophy in a formalized training context, but I've been very fortunate to learn by self-study and brief time at Goyeonsa, the Korean Zen temple, under a mentorship and conversations with many mindful people who are learning and teaching one another. Consider me as an informed enthusiast, a student seeking guidance. I think of this talk not as an expert to you. Think of it as a beginning of collective reflection. I also like to clarify that I did not grow up as Buddhist. I grew up in Korea, so I was really lucky to be exposed to Buddhist cultural practices in Korea, which I will be sharing. But I was raised Christian, so I was outsider looking in. At this stage of my life, know that I'm a secular-friendly, interfaith-oriented student and enthusiast of Buddhism. So that's a long introduction to reach here. What's Ullambana? One of the major Buddhist holidays, and it's observed based on lunar calendar, July 15th. And it's a different date every year for Gregorian calendar. So this year is August 18th. Koreans call it Uranbuje or Uranbuje or Baekjun. And this holiday originates from the sutra called Ullambana Sutra. And the story of the mother of Sariputra is where this at least origin of this holidays are coming from. And it evolves differently in different cultures. So I'm sure Sangha Day is one way of it, how it evolves. A Korean version that I've seen is ancestor honoring and the departed honoring. So the story of the mother of Sariputra goes, the disciple of Sariputra, disciple of Buddha, rescued his mother who has become a preta or hungry ghost via transference of merit with the help of Buddha. The transference of merit enables Sariputra's mother to be reborn and released from the preta world. So I know the impression of Buddhism in America that I've heard of is often more philosophical, but in Korea it's very much about metaphysical and spirit world too. So in Korean description of Ullambana specifically said Buddha used his magic power to open up this gate of hungry ghost hell so that Sariputra could send good vibes, so to speak, and send this merit to mother to rescue her from being stuck in the hungry ghost world. This is an old painting from Joseon Dynasty called Saving Hungry Ghosts by Giving Nectar. At the top, you will see Buddha and different forms of bodhisattvas. And you'll see some of the hungry ghosts in the middle and different ways of, I'm trying to translate some words in my head to that. The difficulty doesn't do the justice, but all the disaster, calamity, catastrophe one can experience in life at the bottom. So the idea is that the nectar of compassion is given from the top to bottom so that eventually the hungry ghosts and suffering people can be raised up and saved. And Korean Buddhists observe this holiday by hanging the names of the departed ones all around the temple and offer their favorite food and flowers and various offerings at the temple together. And they wish their departed ones smooth transition, whether that be reincarnation or if they believe that they're currently stuck somewhere, so that they will move on in a peaceful way. And this is also the day after Buddhist monks and nuns come out of their summer intensive practice. My translation, I'm not sure I love it, but that's during the time when they are secluding themselves away from the public and everything to really get into their purifying practice. And then they come out of that to offer Ullambana, so people who are attending Ullambana ceremony chanting and Dharma talk in this deeply moving way of acknowledging death and loss and grieving that everybody's experiencing. So I wanted to share some photos because I feel like sometimes pictures tell the story better. Note that these photos are not mine. When I visited the temples, they have specific instructions not to take photos during Ullambana because people are grieving, and these are photos from journalists or some bloggers who are breaking the rules. But hopefully I can share this and purify their karma or something. So I don't know if you can make out what you're looking at. There are a lot of lotus lanterns hanging at the ceiling, all of these carrying the ones who passed away. And all the wall, the white side of the wall that my mouse cursor is at, is also covered in the names of the ones who passed away. So the entire place, and this is not how temple looks in ordinary time, but the entire place is covered in the names of people who passed. And everybody brings their favorite food, and everybody's chanting together or mourning together in this collective way. And these are golden Buddha's statues and bodhisattvas. Some temples have shamanist influence because in Korea, Buddhism and shamanism are intertwined. So this is a shaman offering her ceremony, but there's a Buddha statue. So to the sensibility of here, people who don't know Korean culture too well, shamanism and Buddhism might not touch, but in Korea it's very much intertwined. This is another picture of the temple that's just covered in this white paper. It's about like this big, and it's just covered all over with the names, the ones who passed. And I invite both beauty in acknowledging this solemn practice. And I also want to just share that their fruit stacking and candy stacking practice, like they're just like so beautifully artfully done. And I don't know how they do it, but I guess that's also a practice. So I wanted to share my personal experience with Ullambana. Hope that I will speak to you. I was aware of this holiday growing up in Korea. You'll see people like carrying bag of rice and fruits like to the temple, and I was just, wow, that's a big bag of rice. But it didn't quite have the impact on me because I was raised Christian and I didn't really have that intimate connection to the practice. And also my parents tend to warn me against Buddhism because they wanted me to be Christian. So I consider that to be the path for their family. But this practice really touched me during the time I was grieving my brother's passing in 2022. And I wanted to share how touching it was and kind of relay some of that through this talk. So many people are collectively grieving, sending their love to their beloved departed. And the chanting, the thunderous sound of the chanting of the monks, nuns, harmonious, perfect. And it's just being in this, energy of compassion, love, and just remembrance. That's just so powerful. I'll revisit a few images to see if I can really portray that. Imagine all this kind of droning sound of the attendees chanting, sending love to their departed ones, making a point of remembering them. And sometimes you see like specific candies at the altar too, because like that's their favorite food. So altar filled with all these people who enjoy these foods. And there's just this sense of we are all in this together. And the monks just with amazing sense of rhythm and chanting, harmonizing, and just kind of like collectively bringing this firmness, because there's this kind of, it's brimming with emotions, but there's this anchoredness through the chanting of the monks and nuns that are just so comforting, that you can go to difficult places because there's this centralized chanting that are filling up the space that is filled with the names of the departed. And if that doesn't quite give you the good sense of what emotional experience of participating in the Ullambana practice, I'd love to share a parable that might capture this my emotional experience. It's called the parable of mustard seeds. In this parable, Hisagotam, a woman who recently lost her child, approaches the Buddha and asks him to bring her dead child back to life. And in this story, this is written before like acknowledgement of mental illness, but it is clear that she is mentally unwell and that she is holding her dead child everywhere she goes, and is not able to even accept the past. Buddha doesn't simply tell her life is impermanent, get over it, like, or kind of try to depart this disconnected wisdom of just like your child was dead, or life is impermanent, because that would not land, nor would it give a teaching that is necessary for healing. So instead, he sends her on a journey, asking her to gather mustard seeds, receive donation from households, mustard seeds from a house that never know death. Buddha promises if she can bring him the mustard seeds from the household that have never known death, then he will use his, again, there's kind of metaphysical aspects to Buddhist parable. He'll use his magic power to bring her dead child back to life. So she goes from house to house, and she kept asking, like, I need mustard seeds, but did you guys experience any death in your family or in this house? Because then I can't get your mustard seeds. That's not what I'm looking for. But what ends up happening is that she will keep hearing, yes, we lost someone in this house, my father, my child, my wife. And she just goes around and hears all these different stories of loss, grieving, and because she's entering people's houses, she's hearing intimate details and getting to connect with people who lost someone. And this is when she truly experiences and understands, not just as a cognitive idea, but really understands impermanence as an inevitable human condition, and encounters the invisible yet collective experience of grieving the loved ones. So she returns to Buddha with her newly found depth of compassion, and Buddha gives her a Dharma talk in that state, and she becomes awakened. Koreans call it 깨달음, and like sometimes it's not quite specific. It awakens different levels of enlightenment, but she continues her practice and becomes arahant, according to the parable. This is a painting that I found of the parable of mustard seed. She's holding a child who passed away, and Buddha is giving her instruction that would eventually help her truly understand. So this sense of humanity, community, that we are all in this together, was really palpable in the Korean Ullambana observance. The temples include the departed ones. Their names are posted on the wall, either by the community members or monks or nuns. And the ones who don't have relatives and descendants who can't make offering, so that they can also be part of this practice too. You don't have to have descendants to be honored. So this is really what I felt. We are all in this together. this messy journey of losing, grieving, loving, missing everything. Yeah. Can feel so isolating, the intensity, but we are all in this together as humanity community. And synchronicity, I don't know, but I was at a grocery store and the magazine, free magazine was displayed saying, living in a death-denying culture, and it's by Meredith Milstifer, licensed clinical psychologist, discussing that the mainstream culture in the United States often doesn't create space to openly acknowledge our impermanent conditions, to share grieving experience. It's a very private experience, and that is incomplete. And it's not healthy for our psyche, unhelpful to building mindful life that reflects the reality of impermanence. I often find myself acting like I'm gonna live forever, I'm gonna do everything that I want, just kind of having skewed priorities if I don't remind myself life is impermanent. Everyone that I know will pass. So how should we use our resources of time? So I'm a very practical person. I think about benefits, like how can we adapt this? What kind of benefits are in some of the practices that we can creatively bring into our lives? So to me, grieving and remembering and honoring, I also like to add the warts and all of the ancestors, parents, our loved ones. Its benefit to me is that it helps me to acknowledge our true position. Earlier, you might have heard contemplation be visiting that we heard before the sitting meditation. It's a mentioning of delusive self. In living in a mainstream-wise individualist culture, you might think that we are this solitary hero of the story. But our true position, if you were to reflect on Buddhist philosophy and concepts, and if you were to accept it, that we are all interbeings of continuation. And what I mean by that, those two words are from language. So if I were to break it down a little bit, we're embodiment of people we cross paths with, our ancestor and parents' influences, culture, environment. We're all in the process of transforming, thus continuation, with all those influences dealt as a, let's say, cards. We have certain cards that we're dealt, and we also are empowered beings who can transform and keep some of the things that we inherited. That to me feels like a kind of a bird's eye view, kind of zooming out of my narrow perspective to life. Now I see connections, to our people that have crossed lives. Because I learned English when I came over to the United States. I learned basics, but I started speaking at 16. So I know like the mannerism I picked up from people, some of them I can recognize. Oh, I think I picked up this expression from my friends. We are truly, and I think even if you're not immigrants or if you're not, English is your first language, I think if you reflect and gaze deeply, there's this way how everybody influences you. And in that interbeingness, acknowledging that, I believe, allows us to be more compassionate to even people that you're briefly crossed paths with. So how do we cultivate practice that feels authentic for us? It's really nice in Korea that there's a practice that are happening so that you can just walk into the temple and experience it. And there are beautiful temples around DFW too, but sometimes I think there's benefits to cultivating your own practice that feels authentic to you rather than something that you're stepping into. And I also like to share another disclaimer that I'm sharing this not because I'm trying to persuade you to adopt Buddhist cosmology or worldview, the different level of Rico's world and so on. You don't have to believe that as long as if you see some of the benefits in having some sort of practice to acknowledge impermanence and humanity as a collective community. And I thought, as you may continue to reflect on how to make this aspects of life part of your awareness, two key questions that's helpful as I reflect are, how can we practice to acknowledge ourselves as continuation, not a dualistic self, not individual who's doesn't owe anyone anything, and that kind of sense of self. How do we acknowledge ourselves as continuation? How can I honor our ancestors in a way that feels authentic to me? Or people who have crossed path with, how do I honor that in a way that feels right? There's this, when I taught creative writing class, one of the guidance I received is that sometimes structure is helpful. I was very much like, write a free form poetry, but actually it's more helpful sometimes to be like, hey, let's write a haiku and see what happens. Because that's a good starting point of having a structure. In the spirit, I have a suggested practice, and I'll just give it away during the introduction. So it's spoiler alert. The suggested practice that is in the spirit that I've been sharing is the 5 earth touching. And Bobby can correct me if I misrepresent anything at any point. There's a YouTube video if you'd like to listen to this. It's about 30 minutes long, so I can't play it for you. But if you search Touching the Earth Village, Thich Nhat Hanh's voice narrates this, and it's so beautiful. Like his bell ringing, just so much beauty in there. Highly recommended. The intention and benefits stated by plumvillage.org is that practicing the 5 earth touching gives us an opportunity to contemplate what has been transmitted to us by our blood ancestors and spiritual ancestors. We can practice to celebrate the positive and transform what needs to be transformed. I like how realistic it is. It's not like, oh, they had no faults. But instead, yeah, I received this. This one I want to kind of change things up, transform, and even let go. And this part I want to hold on to. I'm going to read just very few sentences of each 5 earth touchings because it's quite long and beautiful poetry of Thich Nhat Hanh's wording, I assume. But for time limit, I will read. The first earth touching is, in gratitude, I bow to all generations of ancestors of my blood family. I see my mother and father, whose blood, flesh, and vitality are circulating in my own veins and nourishing every cell in me. Through them, I also see my 4 grandparents. Their expectations, experiences, wisdom have been transmitted from so many generations of ancestors. I carry in the life, blood, experience, wisdom, happiness, and sorrow of all generations. The suffering and all elements that needs to be transformed. I'm practicing to transform. I assume. Sure. Second one. In gratitude, I bow to all generations of ancestors, my spiritual family. I see myself I see in myself my teachers, the ones who show me the way of love and understanding, the way to breathe, smile, forgive, and live deeply in the present moment. In gratitude, I bow to this land and all of those ancestors who made it available. I see that I'm whole, protected, and nourished by this land and all of the living beings that live here and made life easy and possible for me through all their acts. Gratitude and compassion, I bow down and transmit my energy to those I love. All the energy I have received, I now want to transmit to my father, mother, everyone I love, all who have suffered and worried because of me and for my sake. I know I have not been mindful enough in my daily life. I also know that those who love me had their own difficulties. In my understanding, in understanding and compassion, I bow down to reconcile myself with all those who have made me suffer. I put my heart and send forth my energy of love and understanding to everyone who has made me suffer, to those who have destroyed much of my life, the lives of those I love. I know that these people have themselves undergone a lot of suffering and that their hearts are overloaded with pain, anger, and hatred. What feels for you? What resonates with you? What elicits some difficult feelings for you? At no point I'm asking you to override your sense of authenticity and engagement, but this is a good starting point to really reflect some of the ideas we explored: interbeingness, continuation, remembering that, and humanity as a community. In this practice, being good people who made us suffer. So truly, everyone is part of the community. Thank you, Bobby. And I love the Plum Village tradition that it includes accepting how one feels here and now. Thich Nhat Hanh has a great talk transcription about sometimes it's hard to honor our loved ones or our ancestors. And difficulties is part of the picture. You're not, when you say honoring, you're not saying sanitize it and kind of make a kind of representation of them, but making a practice of see how it feels to acknowledge everything. So I also believe that collective reflection through conversation can really help you to kind of incorporate what you learned or what the thoughts that came and went into part of your being. So if you're called to, I'd love to divide, you can divide yourself into small group of 3. But know that everything is optional in this space. If you do not want to be part of this small group conversation, you can not have eye contact or kind of find your quiet spot. People get it. And some of the questions that can be a starting point of the conversation is, how would you describe the breathing culture or that awareness culture that you experienced? How do you feel after hearing the 5 earth touch practice? How does it make you feel if you're to acknowledge the undeniable connection to the ancestor and people you cross paths with? How would you like to incorporate this awareness into your life, including that awareness, humanity, community, or anything that you feel like is connecting to this idea? So yeah, look around you and make a group of 3. I don't think anybody's on Zoom, is that right? Okay, so we will have about 10 minutes-ish of a group conversation. Hope you enjoy connecting with one another.
Should I stop recording here or should I just keep going?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. You could just hear like that raw, fresh. And like, it just, I would say, like, I was right. Before really talking. I was just like. Be honest, I'll probably need to read those over again because my ADHD kind of started kicking in right at the end as you were going through the practice. But it was a really great talk. Really, it's definitely something I think about a lot. What are we talking about? Yeah, it's on my mind a lot because. So yeah, I did. And I wasn't very close to recently, but he was somebody that I grew up with, who I really liked. And I had a friend that also lost a lot of family. Of course, my grandparents passed, but you know, they were it was kind of their time. They weren't doing very well. Yeah, it's I understand that, but it is something I think about, especially when I see like kind of tragic stories and things like. And I agree that we're not in a culture that really beautiful. Probably about I was taught my experience. Yeah. Kind of, I had to feel it myself too. So like, it feels like things are always here. It's still difficult. But I don't know. In an accident, God, I mean, anything could happen. And I think about it when that. Every once in a while, that just hits me. Like where I am, you know, and you know, tragic things happen all the time. And I don't really know where else to go. Yeah, that's kind of like whenever I think about it, it just kind of puts me in perspective. Kind of realize that like I'm on autopilot a lot of the time, even when I'm like meditating, I still feel like very. I don't know. It feels safe most of the time. I get on top of like I don't want to be in like a scared, you know, like, okay, you could be in danger anywhere you go, but you also have to go live your life. You don't really like you guys. But like with me. Yeah, right. I think it's really interesting. They're getting in the way, really kind of. Also, right, right. Lots of things they're gonna start. Right. Right. Well, even if I like go too wrong with that testing, I can just hear some kind of, oh yeah, this is what I've all week, but you know, I'm now doing it now. That's what's important. But you know, it is a thought. Right. Right. No, I did way I'm like I, it's my first reaction is like, not doing this right. It's all right.
Or have connections with yourself is good enough. Letting things settle into ourselves in whatever form that feels right for you. So good news, and voluminous was coming, I think. You can experience this practice uh, here at the Ultimate Meditation Center. We're so lucky to have Bobby and Cornell offer the order of intervene um, to offer this practice. Stay tuned on social media. If you don't subscribe to the newsletter, that's another good way of finding out about this practice. Now, when you hear the term like touching the earth, you might have known this before, but if you didn't, now you know what's being offered. And Bobby was sharing earlier that deep realization practice also helps you to really, really feel it. And your face is on the screen, Bobby. You're gonna hear here. And Cornell sent some love to him as he's going through his family journey. They offer this practice in this really beautiful way. And also connecting tonight's talk with one of our offering. There's this international movement of having conversation about death called Death Cafe. I like to kind of summarize it. My elevator pitch is be mindful of death, live a good life. It's a donation-based conversation afternoon. Sometimes it's happening in the evening, but this month it's happening in the afternoon. So Sunday, August 18th, I did not plan this. It's actually Ullambana. Oh, 2 to 3:30 p.m. We'll be having some conversation, and traditionally, this movement, people bring their baked goods, and I'll be bringing my chocolate cake with yummy icing. And I've heard this share over and over again. People say, I feel lighter after attending this. So that's an endorsement from real people. So consider this as part of your practice, or you can mark your calendar, August 18th, it's gonna connect to collective energy to make a point of remembering your loved ones who departed, remembering your ancestors, and or even researching your ancestors if that feels like the right practice for you. So hope this is kind of jogging your mind to think about how can I acknowledge myself in this net of Indra. Speaking of connection, tonight is the first Sunday, which means there's community restaurant outing, pay for yourself style. We meet at Bangkok Beltline. So I'll be there. Come join us if you like. If you like Thai food, which is really easy to like. So I close my talk with my gratitude. Thank you so much for offering your presence and attention to this collective reflection. May we practice recognizing ourselves and all beings as interbeing of continuation. So we may know our impermanence, what to celebrate and what to transform together as a humanity community. We're in this together. Jiyoon is bowing out. Thank you so much.